Hello! Before the video begins, I'd like to state that this video will be split into two parts. The first part being the Platinum Trophy journey, and the second part being personal thoughts and advice for any new and current players. I'll be placing a timestamp of both sections if you're only wanting to see one portion, but it'd be much appreciated if you saw the entire video as a whole. Hope you enjoy. The following Platinum Trophy was earned before the February 6, 2024 update. A lot of what's currently in the game right now is different from when this Platinum was earned. So, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or TCM for short, is an asymmetrical horror game that released on August 18, 2023, and the very first asymmetrical horror game that I had the chance to experience when it first started. Despite what others may sometimes think of the game right now, I genuinely have a great time in playing this game. But how was the Platinum Trophy experience for this game? That's one beast that was easily one of the toughest to accomplish. But let's start from the beginning. The very first game I had was playing on the family side, with me being the big man himself, Leatherface. With my two buddies joining me for the very first game, you can imagine how we all were at the beginning. Pretty bad, not knowing how to play with the game's mechanics, but this still earned me my first trophy for executing my first victim, and two other trophies. One for getting Grandpa to maximum level and keeping him like that for the rest of the match, and another for getting my first unlockable. After messing around as the family for a bit, we switched over to the victim side to have our very first game, in which I chose Sunny. And I can admit, I was terrified knowing that I was now going to be the one being hunted. But by playing as Sunny, I earned another trophy for tracking all family members using his ability. That was nice, but we still ended up losing. Humble beginnings. Once those matches were over, I went over to the skill tree and used my very first skill points, earning me another trophy for doing so. I then went back to the family side, this time on solo queue as Leatherface once again, earning two trophies in one match. One for executing the first victim in a match, and another for destroying 10 objects with the chainsaw. I then got another set of trophies for the family side. One for feeding Grandpa a total of 10 times, one for reaching level 5 with a single character, and another for getting a perfect family win on each map. So far, everything was going pretty smooth for the family side of trophies, but that would only be the appetizer for what was to come later on. It was now time for me to go back to the victim side, still terrified about being hunted, but willing to give it a try for the full experience. I first got a trophy for escaping without Grandpa detecting me once, and then another for escaping the family house by Navy sealing out of the front window and escaping down the driveway. This trophy was actually a little easy to get, since back then, all electrified exits will be shut off at the beginning of the match, and many players, like myself, were still in the learning process of the game. Oh yeah, I also got another trophy for surviving 3 minutes as the last victim and escaping. Back on the family side, I earned a trophy for killing a victim as they were about to escape, and another for catching 5 victims with traps. On the victim side, I earned a trophy for winning 4 close encounters and another for escaping without making any noise. You know, I'm actually pretty glad I got these in the early stages of me playing the game, since later on with experience, a lot of my beginning tactics would evolve. I then earned another trophy for playing 74 public matches with the added bonus of seeing a wild Leland at the exit. I then played on the victim side with the boys, earning a trophy for dropping down the well 10 times,
Ow!
one for healing 4 teammates, and another for barging 10 family members. You can see that as a victim player, I wasn't really that good, but that would have to change for future trophies, as I would have to come back to this side later on. So for now, back to the family side. I partied up with the boys once again as family, now being better at the game since the first time I started playing. I picked Leatherface once again, as he's the family member I use the most, as when playing in solo queue, it was pretty rare for others to pick him, so naturally, I got better at using him, learning all the basements and outside areas from the current maps. This gave me a great advantage, as I would now know which areas I could navigate as him, which helped me in earning another trophy, which was to execute all 4 victims in a single match. I won't lie, I was pretty proud of myself for this one. I then also got another trophy with Hitchhiker for using one of each shortcut and ladder that victims could use during a match. I went back to the victim side once again to spice up the trophy variation, this time earning a trophy for performing 3 sneak attacks on the family, and another for using Connie's focus ability 10 times. I was still a long way to go before I got good on the victim side, but I kept playing for a bit more on the victim side, not knowing I was actually working on another trophy that would need my attention. On the family side, I got quite a bit of trophies. One for executing a victim with each of the family members' default execution, 2 of Cook's trophies, one for adding 10 locks, and another for hearing out 10 victims in total with his ability. Another for starting a match with a fully leveled up ability and 3 level 3 perks equipped. And then, I got one of the most unexpected trophies, which was to execute a victim in under 30 seconds. Keep in mind that this was way before Leatherface's instant activation buff was given to him. One for executing 100 victims in total, and for reaching level 5 with all characters. Still a long way to go for the platinum, but there was no turning back now. I was committed to seeing this to the end. The next day came, and it was time for me to keep getting more trophies. I started off the day by earning a trophy for winning 4 close encounters as a family member. Another for respecking a character's unlock tree after reaching level 10, and one for barging open 10 latched doors. Surprisingly, I hadn't earned this one, since Leatherface doesn't barge open doors, unless you have the Master Key perk. Well, now that the easier trophies were out of the way, it was time to go for the harder ones, starting off with achieving a perfect victim win in all maps. I was glad that I always stayed to see the rest of the match after either escaping or dying, as one of my teammates managed to escape from the family house and get me the trophy I needed. After that trophy, I decided to go for another tough one, Fixer, which was to stop the generator, fix the fuse box, and open the pressure valve in a single match. I was extremely close one time, but I missed out in stopping the generator, but this would let me know that I was ready to take on this trophy. It was just a matter of doing it. Another match came, and luck was on my side, as I was able to earn this trophy without much issue with Julie. I was working on quite a couple of victim-sided trophies at the time, and thanks to a double XP weekend event, I got the trophy for reaching player level 50. Starting to get closer and closer to the platinum, but now, a lot of dedication would need to be done from my part, as a lot of victim-sided trophies were going to be difficult to achieve. I was mostly playing as both Julie and Anna, as they both had trophies related to their abilities. I first got a trophy for escaping through each exit in the slaughterhouse map, and another for doing the same, but in the gas station map. Then, luck was on my side once again. Since all but one family member left the match, I was able to earn a trophy for sneak attacking all family members in a single match. That was another trophy out of the way, but the grind was still an ongoing task. I then got another trophy that I surprisingly hadn't done in the beginning stages of the game, which was to hide in every possible spot as the victim. Shortly after that, I got Gavel Kill. Sweet! Remember how I said that I was playing as Julie and Anna for the most part? This was so I could earn a trophy with both of these characters' abilities. One was for using Julie's level 3 ability 5 times. For anyone who doesn't know, the level 3 ability is quite the grind, as I would have to use Julie for most of the victim games to level it up. And another was for using Anna's ability to purge 4 poison effects. This one was extremely situational, as I would have to purposefully walk into Sissy's poison cloud to then use my ability. And that is, if Sissy was even selected for the current game. But regardless of this, I still needed to escape as a victim 100 times to earn another trophy, so I didn't mind using them in multiple games. It was after a lot of time and dedication that I finally got the trophy for escaping 100 times. But this wasn't the last trophy I would be needing to get on the victim side. But I went back to the family side to earn all but 2 trophies. I first got a trophy for poisoning 15 items. Yep, after all this time, I had barely even used Sissy. But this was a good way to start playing as family again. I then got another trophy for poisoning 2 victims simultaneously. I know this one can be a hard trophy, so I wasn't complaining that I got it almost immediately when playing as Sissy. All that time playing on the victim side really helped me in learning where most victims like to go. I also got another trophy for analyzing 5 victim footprints as Johnny. Same as with Sissy, I barely even used them before. But this would be the end of some of the harder trophies. It was now time for the ones that would either make or break this platinum trophy journey. I first went back to the victim side to earn one trophy I was dreading this whole time, which was to escape using each exit in the family house map. I had escaped using each exit already, except for one, the pressure valve exit. But with all the experience I've had by playing both the family and victim side, I knew I was ready to take on this challenge. So I went in with Connie and committed to exiting through the pressure valve exit, now knowing where most family players would check and where the valve could spawn. I was able to earn this trophy on my first attempt. This was the end of all victim-sided trophies. It was now time to get the last 2 family-sided trophies, and rightfully so, the hardest ones. The Get Out of There trophy was one that I had only managed to drag out 7 victims out of the 20 needed. This trophy was the only one I requested help from the boys, as at this point in the game's life cycle, it was extremely rare for a victim to be hiding in one of these hiding spots. So I asked for their assistance, and thanks to them, I was able to earn this trophy, and it was going to be the only one I would ask for help. There was only one final trophy standing between me and the platinum, which was to execute 10 victims using the gallows as Leatherface. Since I was already extremely experienced with Leatherface at this point, it was just a matter of doing just enough damage to let the victim faint so I could carry them to the gallows. I switched my build to one that wouldn't kill a victim with one swing. Thankfully, since I already knew the damage Leatherface did, I knew when to stop attacking. This wasn't an easy thing to do, but it was easier after playing Leatherface for an extended amount of time. Sometimes I would get a gallows kill at the end of the game, and some pretty early on. But after a lot of trial and error, I was able to get my final gallows kill in the basement, earn the final trophy, and the platinum. The journey had finally come to an end. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was an extremely fun game for me to try out. The trophies were definitely some of the more tougher ones I've had to earn, even more since this is a multiplayer only game, so a lot of personal skill was needed from my part. And now, here's the list of the top 3 hardest trophies for this platinum. Third place goes to Fixer, as you will need to reach all of these objectives before any of your teammates do, with the fuse box being the easiest to miss, since if another victim fixes it before you reach it, the trophy will be voided. Map knowledge and knowing when to move before a family member gets to you are key components for earning this trophy. Second place goes to Hung Up On You. As with Leatherface, you'll most likely be killing victims with 1 or 2 hits. Knowing how much damage you do for each swing, and being able to grab a victim before they recover from an incapacitated state will determine the difficulty for this trophy. First place goes to Get Out of There. As I mentioned before, not many victims use hiding spots. There are other times in which a victim will just burst out of a hiding spot upon you seeing them. From all other trophies, this is the only one that would have been impossible for me to earn without help. Despite the trophies for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre being some of the toughest I've ever done, I still had an extremely fun time with this game. Being the first asymmetrical horror game I've ever played, this one definitely left a good mark for me. I hope to see you all again for the next Platinum Trophy. Any recommendations of other games would be greatly appreciated as well. Now, onto some personal thoughts and tips I'd like to share for any new and experienced players. Personally, after completing this game, I still find myself enjoying a lot of what it offers, whether it be by playing either side or upgrading many of its available perks, although I can admit that many of these can be either extremely powerful or downright useless, but it definitely makes for very interesting games in the long run. Now, I know that there haven't been many updates in terms of content, but with what's being offered right now, I do think it's a good time to jump into the game to try out its newer features and balancing that's been done. Believe me, on the first 3 months of the game, it was an extremely busted game, regardless of which side you played on. I can admit that going into this game as a new player right now can be pretty rough, especially since you'll be going against other players that have been playing the game since release date. Thankfully, with its many updates, you don't really have to learn how to play the hard way like a lot of us did, since you're now able to explore all the maps at your own pace, to familiarize yourself with all the exits and experiment with different types of perks, attributes, and builds before going into the real deal. One of the biggest issues from my experience when doing the Platinum Trophy were the queue times in lobbies, but right now, you would think that it'd be hard to find games since it's been removed from Game Pass, but in reality, I keep getting games fairly quick on both sides. It would be pretty rare for me to get no games for an extended amount of time. Now, on the matter of how long each game lasted once it started, that's a completely different story, since some games could last 10 to 15 minutes, or be over in less than 5 minutes. That would solely depend on which type of players I would be playing with. Going into the type of players I would match with, starting out as a new player, you may find yourself struggling in finding a group of players that are willing to play alongside you. This is normal in all types of multiplayer games. Believe me, most of the players that are still playing this game struggled at first as well. Is it going to be a much more difficult game for the experienced player when paired up with someone new? Absolutely! And it's also going to be difficult for the new player, since they're completely lost and are solely depending on others at first. But if you as an experienced player is able to help out any newcomer, believe me, it will pay off in the long run for them. I've had to help out newer players as well on both sides, and they were glad that I wasn't hard on them, since I know I was once in their position and my teammates helped me out. Let me start by mentioning the struggles when first playing as family, and then move on to the victim side. On the family side, the biggest struggles you're probably going to face are adapting to patrolling the exits and learning when to drop a chase. In terms of patrolling the exits, this includes any door that you're able to lock behind you and not accidentally turning off either the generator or car battery. I do see that many new players accidentally leave these open without knowing. If this is the case, as an experienced player, do let them know that they left one of these exits open as opposed to just leaving the game overall, as by leaving the game, they don't really learn anything. In terms of dropping a chase, it means that you don't always have to chase down a victim until they're taken down. Some victims will play the role of distraction to allow other victims to open other exits while you're busy. And there are also other times in which you'll be unable to catch a victim due to your family member's characteristics, such as not being able to cross through gaps. Always be on the lookout for victims that are using themselves as distractions and focus on seeing if there's an exit nearby that is being unlocked. For the victim side, the biggest struggles you're probably going to face are learning the map layout and knowing what gaps and barricades can be used to break a chase. Learning the basement will mostly be the hardest part to learn as a new player, as most of the basements can look extremely similar and you're bound to get lost in your first games, whether it be because you don't know where the basement exits are or are trying to look for any toolboxes to open up any doors. For the outside areas of the map, a lot can be overwhelming in the first games you have, whether by not knowing where your exits are or straight up panicking after being caught by one of the family members. Seeing the outside area of a map can be just as challenging as when you're just learning the basement, but now with the added pressure of most of the family members being on patrol. For your gaps and barricades to break a chase, learning how to use these effectively while in the middle of a chase can be difficult, since you're not familiar with which are the best to use to either heal, recover your stamina, or escape from a family member. Be extremely mindful that more experienced family players can still manage to land a hit on you when going into either animation, as you do have a slight window in which you can still be hit. Some may bait you into using either one to catch you on the other end, or in the case of Leatherface, downright destroy your gap or barricade to prevent you from using it or to trap you. For all of these struggles in both the family and victim side, since you're now able to enter a private match on your own, use that time to help familiarize yourself in seeing where all the exits are and where both gaps and barricades are. Also, be on the lookout for where any toolboxes, bone scrap piles, healing bottles, valves, and fuses can spawn while exploring. Do keep in mind that these don't always spawn in the exact same spots, but there are exceptions in some places that have fixed spawn points regardless of what RNG you get. Keep exploring these areas as much as you want, but remember that when going into the real deal, your own emotions can sometimes make you panic or make a reckless mistake that could cost you the game. For this next section, I'd like to give some personal tips for each side and then some overall tips to keep in mind for both sides. This time, let me begin with the victim side first and then move on to the family side. For my first tip, lockpick as many basement doors as possible for the later game. You would be surprised how many players end up getting taken down just because a basement door wasn't open for them when being chased. This is a lot easier to do when there isn't a Leatherface and you know where the exits and most of the toolbox spawn points are. Second tip, when going outside of the basement, have a primary plan in mind, but have multiple alternatives if it goes wrong. The biggest reason why I'm saying this is mostly due to a lot of victims wanting to force their primary plan regardless of what situation they're in. Having multiple alternatives not only throws the family off, but it makes it harder for you to be anticipated by them. Now that we're on the subject of alternative plans, my third tip is to use the basement to your advantage to reach your point of destination. This is something that I managed to learn in the long run, as going through the basement after learning its layout and knowing both what and where my objective is helped me a lot in avoiding as much conflict as possible, since in the later game, most family members are in the outside areas and leave the basement completely empty. This can change if they either already know you are in the basement or are currently chasing another victim down there and stumble into you. My fourth tip is to use the wells if you need to reset. This is one of the most crucial things I had to learn, as being stubborn and wanting to open up an exit completely while a family member knows I'm in the area made me either take a lot of damage or prevent me from opening up a different exit. Going down a well can also be used as a distraction if you know that a family member has already been alerted that you are in the area, making them search the open area for an extended amount of time, not knowing that you are already gone, giving you an opportunity to open up an alternative exit. My fifth and final tip for the victim side is to use your hiding and blind spots effectively. You would be surprised how many times I've been able to break a chase just because I was able to find an effective spot for me to hide just for the right amount of time until the family members left. I will say that your results for hiding can vary depending on how experienced a family member is and how lucky you are at the moment. Now, let's move on to the family side. My first tip is to look at what exits are closest to your location upon spawning. This is one that I've seen a lot of family members skim over, as knowing what exits are closest to you upon spawning can prepare you in anticipating what move a victim may do upon starting the game, especially if they decide to wake up Grandpa extremely early. This is especially useful when you know where your pressure valve and fuse box have spawned in your current map to further prepare for where high traffic areas will be in your game. Using family focus will help you in pinpointing these exits much quicker. The second tip can vary if you have a Leatherface in your game or not, and that is, be careful if you decide to go into the basement in the early game, as doing this in the early stages of the game can leave an exit completely wide open for victims to escape, and if you don't have a lot of familiarity with the basement, you could wind up getting lost or getting looped for an extended amount of time. If Leatherface is selected in your current game, he could help in breaking a lot of the barricades that could be used against you while also giving you more time to prepare in the early game. This can sometimes vary on how experienced your Leatherface player is. Transitioning over to my third tip is making any adjustments to any locks and traps you may have placed in the early game. Personally, I think this is one tip I always have in mind when playing on the family side, as when the later game is taking place, if your locks and traps haven't been dismantled, moving them over to other places to block a section of the map that was once opened up can turn the tables to your favor once again. This can also be used to catch victims off guard, thinking they were on the safe side as before, and have them switch strategies. My fourth tip is one that was also mentioned for the new players, which is knowing when to drop a chase. This is still one of the most important things I've had to learn, especially when having to decide to either keep chasing a high value target or dropping it to close the pressure valve or fuse box before more victims can escape. Other times, more than one victim could be working together in opening up an exit. This is where you will need to make a crucial decision on which victim you are going to take priority in taking down. If an exit is already open and the victim is already waiting at the exit gate, I would recommend closing down the exit or chase down the other victims that haven't reached that exit. Spending your time on the victim that's already going to take off will put your teammates at a huge disadvantage, as victims can use this information to their advantage and open other exits already knowing you're somewhere else. I would only recommend chasing down the victim that's waiting at the exit gate if they are the last one in the game. My fifth tip is to follow any blood trails a victim left behind after getting hit. This can be extremely helpful when you get either door slammed, run out of stamina, or lose sight of them while in a chase. Seeing a blood trail can let you know whether a victim is hiding somewhere nearby or have gone down a well. It's easy to assume that a victim has completely disappeared from your field of vision, but blood trails are extremely helpful in leading you where a victim went. My sixth and final tip is to use your family focus more often, especially when searching out an area. Family focus is one of the things that has helped me a lot when searching out an area I think a victim has gone through. If you haven't used it already, This will help in hearing out any voice line a victim says, while simultaneously allowing you to see if the fuse box has been opened or any of your locks/traps have been dismantled. This becomes a lot more useful when searching an area in the night setting or a section that has a lot of hiding spots. If you have headphones and the victim is speaking around you, you'll be able to pinpoint their location much easier by hearing which side of the voice line came from.
They'll be back. I'm sure of it.
Before I conclude this video, I'd like to share some last bits of advice that are shared with both sides. First, pay close attention to any visual and sound cues that come from either a victim or a family member. Sound is an extremely key component when playing on either side, as hearing what sounds come from either side matching their animation can prepare you for what they are currently doing, such as but not limited to anyone using their character's ability and any doors being opened that lead to exits. Keep in mind that if you are able to hear or see someone from your current position, the other side is most likely able to hear and see you as well. Second, keep track of any changes in the environment. This can include any open doors that were once latched or locked, opened crawl spaces, opened fuse boxes, and attached valves. Paying close attention to these can prepare you for what your next plan of action can be. For the family side, seeing these changes can provide you with a hint that a victim is currently in the area you are in. Also, if a door has been lockpicked in an area leading to an exit gate, check the outside area leading to the exit first before heading back to the previous area. Keeping track of a victim's currently earned points during a match will give you a clear indicator for any critical doors that have been opened. For the victim side, seeing these changes will help you in seeing where the family can have their focus on while you work on another exit. Keeping track of these changes in the environment can also help you to escape in the later game, such as knowing what exits are already open for you to make a move, or what gaps are still available for you to break a chase. Third, keep Grandpa's current level in mind. For the family side, if you're currently feeding him alongside your other teammates, knowing what level he's at can prepare you if a victim is going to go for the stab against him, since feeding him at a consistent pace when getting an opening to do so will give a lot more pressure to victims. The added bonus of him screaming while you're chasing a victim will give a clear indicator to other family members to either help you or deal with another area. For the victim side, keeping track of what level Grandpa's at will help you in knowing how much pressure you currently have, alongside getting an idea of what type of perks may be active due to his current level. Since if Grandpa's being leveled up extremely quick, you may have to incapacitate him to prevent the family from reaching a much higher level. Although, a family member may be waiting for you to do that so that they can take you out of the game and feed him upon recovering. If Grandpa isn't being leveled up, there's no need to incapacitate him, unless you're wanting to bring attention to yourself to help other victims. If he's being leveled up consistently, his scream can sometimes activate in the worst spot possible, completely ruining your plan of action and being detected. Fourth, be mindful of grapple animations. At some point during your current game, grapples are going to occur. For the victim side, if you are in a grapple, although you aren't able to be instantly taken down with one hit, grappling in the bad spot next to other family members can still result in you getting taken down. Another thing to note is if you win a grapple animation, depending on how long your win animation is, you can either take a lot of damage or get eliminated regardless of winning the grapple. Being in a grapple can also help another victim to open up an exit, but be mindful if the family currently has suffocating grip activated, since if they win, you're essentially giving them an opportunity to take down another victim upon losing. For the family side, these can be used to annoy you and make you want to chase down a victim upon losing the grapple. These can also be used while close to an exit to give them a chance to open it. If you lose a grapple while close to the pressure valve and it's building pressure to open up the exit, use your stun immunity to turn off the pressure valve. One big thing to note, like on the victim side, if you're close to the family member being grappled and there isn't an exit being opened, use that time on the grapple animation to damage them. If you are Leatherface, if you know the grapple animation is going to be long, use that extra time to rev your chainsaw as much as possible to land the strongest hit and possibly take down the victim instantly. 5th, communicate with your teammates. One of the biggest issues I've seen players not do on either side is communicating with their teammates about anything that's going on in the current game. For the victim side, there are issues in communicating to others which exit is either currently being worked on or are already open and which family member is at their current location. For the family side, they don't mention to others which victim is currently being chased, where an exit has been breached, or if any help is needed to deal with more than one victim at one exit to prevent them from escaping. Communication is one of the biggest tools that can easily turn the tables to your favor when playing on either side. 6th, play with as many characters as possible on both sides on all maps. The reason why this is something I recommend to do is due to the value you get upon learning what each character does and what your own actions would be when playing as that character. Upon playing on the victim side for quite some time, this information can be used as a family member to determine where most victims and yourself tend to go in all maps, what actions are usually taken, and what hiding spots both yourself and other victims use to break line of sight from the family. When making the switch from family to victim, this can provide you with information of how most family members tend to play with their character's ability, which places are heavily patrolled for certain exit spawn points, and what kind of matchup it'll be upon seeing which family members have been selected. Your own personal experience on both sides will greatly help you in creating a better strategy when deciding to either play on the family or victim side. 7th, learn to adapt on the spot. Like mentioned on my 6th bit of advice, your personal experience will greatly help you in creating a better strategy. This goes hand in hand when having to deal with unexpected situations that occur during your current game. An example from my personal experience will be when victims decide to rush the game, as it can be a double-edged sword for victims. Since it's extremely aggressive in the early game, competent family players will find ways to shut it down after taking your most important characters out of the game extremely early, leaving you with little to no options in the later game if they had to deal with multiple instances of rushing victims beforehand. For both family and victim side players, if something doesn't go the way that you were expecting, don't just leave the game without trying a different strategy and learning from that experience. Leaving the game without seeing what you could have done better won't help you in adapting to different types of situations in future games. The 8th and my most important bit of advice is to depend on your personal player skills. Perks are definitely something that can be used to give you an extra edge in your current game, but do your best to not solely depend on certain perks all the time. Since perks can always be updated whenever a patch becomes live, it can completely change how a perk used to work. Not knowing how to adapt after drastic changes have occurred for your character will make it much more difficult for you in the long run. Experiment with as many playstyles as possible to deal with the majority of situations. Every game, whether it be a win or a loss, should be taken as a learning lesson to further improve your personal player skills. This is something that you'll experience when having to switch between characters on either side. It'll be rough at first since you have no experience with that character and you'll want to switch to your preferred character. But after some time and consistency has passed, you'll be able to develop your own unique playstyle much quicker and learn how to use them properly regardless of what perks you have equipped. Any double XP events that take place will definitely help you in upgrading both your character's ability and perks, but having max level abilities and perks won't replace your personal player skills. I hope this information helps in making your experience when playing TCM much more enjoyable, even if it's pretty rough at first since many players have been playing this game since release date. And while you're down in the comments, share with me any other advice you would like to give to other players.
¡Agárrenla! ¡No dejen que se escape! ¡Escapad! ¡Ah! ¡Se desmayó! No nos dio la satisfacción de matarla. Chingado.
Hope to see you all in the next video or in the middle of a game. See ya.